Okay, welcome to this edition of Planning for Peace for those who missed it. So this is a recap of the second call that we held this June, and this is where we are discussing laying out the block plan and also laying out the weekly pieces. So I'm going to suggest you grab your Planning for Peace journal if you have one. I am using I'm using a bullet journal that I have laid out exactly like the Planning for Peace journal. I am going to suggest, before I get started here, if you have not listened to the first one, please go back and listen to the first one. The first one is going to lay out all of the pieces that I'm just going to briefly show you as I'm walking through this. All right, so again, this is my bullet journal that I've laid out for Sam and Soraya for this coming school year. I'm still working on putting all the pieces together. But the pieces that should be done by now are complete. So, definitely why you homeschool, your pieces with confidence and connection. I always save the rhythm for later because it will change between now and the beginning of the school year. But then you definitely want to do these evaluation pages. So this is a self-evaluation page, and I've gone through, and some years I'm like an 8 or a 9 on most things. This year I have a few other pieces that I'm working on. It's just where I'm at right now. Also laid out some goals for the year. Discussed my thoughts about temperament. This here is a space for our family mission statement that we'll be editing here soon, since we have a new adult in the house. And this is Soraya's evaluation page that I'm going to be doing in the next few weeks so that it is complete. I have an old one that I did at the end of the year in last year's journal, but this one will be for beginning this year. You can see I've got one for Sam as well, and mid-year space, and then a space to evaluate us as teachers. Now this is all in the Planning for Peace journal. So I want to encourage you to use one or the other. And even if you choose to just use a notebook, just make sure you really do these evaluations. They are super important. This is another piece that I think is crazy important, and we started on it in the last video. I've been adding it here and there adding to it here and there as I've been planning. This is your year at a glance. This is important because this is kind of your overall roadmap. When you're using a map, you've got your town map, you've got how you get from here to the grocery store, then you've also got the city map and the state map. This I see as like the whole United States. This is the big thing. And the reason why I use it is because I want to know what I am looking at when I'm planning out the weeks. So you can see here, I put in things that I know are coming up. Birthdays, festivals, but then I've also already gone to the spot where I know how many weeks are going to be in each month for teaching. And that is something that you'll have to figure out when you lay out your months, and sort of when you're looking at this other portion, this like where, what you're doing. So for instance, my husband's birthday is the 15th of September. I know we're not doing school that day, and probably not that week. So I wanted to make sure that when I calculated how many weeks of school we're going to do, that I took that into account. So that is often what happens, is people forget to take all those little bits into account, and then you start planning, and you get frustrated because you didn't think of everything. So also, like in this one, so this is October, there's actually 5 weeks in October. So sort of laying this out really gives me an opportunity to see where I'm actually going to be schooling walking forward. So you can see like December, I've only got 2 weeks in here. January's 3 weeks. And for us, we are also following the seasons of 7 school calendar, since my kids also attend there for enrichment for Soraya, and Sam is in our senior class. So I really want to make sure that I have all of the pieces laid out and all of the vacation times and the school shutdowns listed, so that I know what I'm doing when I get ready to plan. It's a really good idea if you have any camps that you do throughout the year, activities that change up, this is the place to write them all down. And then I refer back to this as I'm going through my weekly planning. Okay, so that's the year at a glance. You should have that done before you do this next part. All right, so the next part is, our blocks. And in the big Planning for Peace journal, it looks like this. It's 2 pages. I have condensed it down for my needs in my little bullet journal down to 1 page. A lot of people really like 2 pages because they want to make a lot of notes. Totally get that. So I tend to make notes like this on sticky notes and sort of stick them in here until the weeks that I'm getting ready to do that weekly planning. But let's start here with the block. So you can see that with the block plan, and actually let me go to one that I have all of the content here next to me for. Science movements right here. So we're doing, this is class 7. And for those of you who are using our curriculum guide, what I did was I looked at, and this is only for class 7. I looked at the way I have it laid out. So I have it laid out in class 7 with the entire Renaissance. Well, there are specific smaller blocks within the Renaissance. So I pulled out the science movements that are in the Renaissance, and I gathered together the books and supplies that I'm going to be using, and I noted them all in here. So then I can put them back on my shelf and know where they are when it's time to use them. So it was really important to, go through all of my resources. Now, if this is, this is the 5th time I've taught grade 7, but if this is your first time, then, you might not know all of your resources just yet. So just write down the ones that you have. Definitely look at the ones that I list in the curriculum if you're using our curriculum, and maybe check those out at the library or see if a friend has those. Ask questions. One thing that's really helpful to me is that I will ask for, like, a friend. If a friend has it, I will ask for the table of contents so that I can see what's in the table of contents, because that usually is super helpful. I will also sometimes ask for the index, so that way you can decide whether or not this is a book that you want to have in your collection, because I know that resources are expensive. So just sort of keep that in mind. So you can see here, I've already got some field trips, thinking about field trips that we can go on, observatories, because this is a science block, the Orlando Science Center, then all of our materials. So we have a telescope. So I want to make sure I don't forget about that and it gets stuck in some dark closet. And then I get to the end of the block and I go, oh, wait a minute, I had one of those. So it's listed here, plus the books that I know I'll be using during this block. So I don't have the time frame just yet because we're still working on that. And I'm still working on my goals for her with regards to that. There are some where I've already put the goals down. So let's look at the very first block we're doing is physiology. And this is, we're going to have a birds and bees conversation. We're also going to be talking about the respiratory system, the circulatory system, the nervous system, all of those things. So I've already sort of laid out what my goals for her are. And again, a lot of this is based on the fact that I've taught this before. So if you've not taught this before, you really want to consider your child at this age. And I really like books like this. This is the tasks and content of the Steiner Waldorf curriculum. There's also one that I like actually even better. This is affectionately called the Yellow Book by a lot of Waldorf people, but there's one also called the Blue Book. And the Blue Book is the, I think it's called the Steiner Waldorf Curriculum for Waldorf Schools or something like that. And that one is by, oh my gosh, that one is totally just left my head. I will put it in the notes to this video. I do not have it sitting here. But that one is actually my favorite. This one is good for letting you know what they're doing, basically overview in the schools in the United States. The reason why I like the blue one better, I have them both. The reason I like the blue one better is because it tells me exactly what Steiner said. The yellow one is not as deep Steiner. It has some references, but the blue one tells me all of the pieces that Steiner said. So then you can really sort of look at what your goals should be. What's the child going through right now? You know, there are also some other great resources for, putting together your year when it comes to looking at your child. We have some of those resources on our website. We definitely talk about some of them on our reels, but then also there are great things like the book club that Annie over at the Child is the Curriculum holds. We are doing child studies all the time. And so that's a really great way to truly understand where your child is to study with others. So that being said, now we've done this block planning. So if you've not gotten this far, pause this video, go start doing that. You want to do that for every block. Now I want to talk just a minute about other grades. So this right here is second grade. If you are using our curriculum, then you'll see it's broken out into blocks. And when I then transfer this over to, say, this page, I will do one page for the Fables blocks, just one, because my resources are going to be the same. So I'll do one, even though this would be like 6 weeks, right? And you're not going to do them back to back. I'm going to house all of the information for this Fables block in that one space. The same with the Legends of the Saints. I'm going to house all of it in the same space. And the same with my animal stories. Because then you're going to spread them out into the weeks, like I have here in the curriculum, but also you will then move them to these weekly pages. So feel free to mark them up. So these weekly pages, the way they look inside the Planning for Peace journal, is there are actually two. There's one, there's just it's laid out that way in case you have, overlapping blocks. What I like to do is actually cross out these. And when we revise this, we'll probably just put week and then blank. I don't think there's another page. Maybe there is and I am wrong. No, there's not. So that way you can decide what week you're on. So what I would say is, say we're doing the animal block and we're laying the animal block out. So in the curriculum, you can see that the animal block is block 3. And it's 2 weeks of animal stories. So I would put block 3. I would write that, write animal block here, but I would write block 3 or whatever dates that I'm going to be doing these blocks in. And then I would put my week 1 and any extra stories from that week 1 or any extra places that I wanted to go, things I wanted to do in week 1. The same for week 2. And then you see this is only 2 weeks in the curriculum. So then once we get down to animal stories again, there's another 2 weeks here. So I would make sure that I'm differentiating these 2 weeks that are in one part of the year from these 2 weeks that are in another part of the year. So if that is super confusing, please drop us a note. We want to make sure that you completely understand. And I get this question a lot. The curriculum's really well laid out. Can't I just use the curriculum instead of going through all this planning? Yes, you can. Here is the reason why I highly recommend the planning. You are going to have things you want to add, whether it be field trips you want to go on, other books that you remember from your childhood. So this planning allows you to put those pieces in place. Okay, let's also talk about what happens for festivals. So, we do have a festival section in the Planning for Peace journal. Move some things around. But then when you're looking at the lower grades, especially classes 1 and 2, you'll see that there are actually places for the festivals. Why do we do that? We do that because we want to really give you the opportunity to put those festival blocks then where you need them. So you can put them in with the weeks the way they should be. And like for instance, this first Legend of Saints block, you have St. George and St. Michael, which really should go back to back. They are two sides of the same coin. So you want to make sure that you place that in a place where you can enjoy then the Michaelmas festival. So look at your school calendar for the year and with the way you're laying out your blocks, and just make sure you put these in those places. And then the same would be for some of the other saints. So we have Saint Brigid. Saint Brigid is in February. We have over here Saint Martin. Saint Martin is in November. Saint Nicholas, he's in December. Santa Lucia, also in December. So you really want to take these saints blocks or saints weeks and put them where they belong in your plan, rather than putting them all together. Yes, you could study them all together like this, but you'll have a much richer experience if you put them where they belong in the weeks of the year with the festivals, and then you sort of have them all sorted out. And you know, you may have festival books that you're collecting that you really want to use, and that would be, you know, definitely something that you would want to put on those festival planning pages or on those block planning pages, so that you know where all your books are. And maybe you're collecting books, or you know friends that have books. So sort of just keep that in mind as you're working. Okay, so again, then when you're doing the weeks, so this is actually our class 6 curriculum. You can see it's also broken down. No festivals once they're older. Does not mean you don't do festivals. It just means it's not part of the annual curriculum. They are in classes 1 and class 2, definitely in the kinder. And then after that, we really expect that you will find ways for your family to celebrate those festivals. And we have a lot of resources on our website at waldorfessentials.com, and also plenty of resources on the arielslight.org parent ministry page. Okay, so now you are in the grades, and you are taking the things that you've got here and you are putting them into then this weekly section. Remember, just like I said, you're using a Planning for Peace journal. You'll put it on these weeks. So let's take, for instance, let's see earth structures, which is the geology and geography of your homeland area. I'm going to want to take some field trips during this time. So as I'm laying out my week, that's where I'm writing them. So, you know, I already talked about them in the field trip section of the block plan, right? I already talked about them in the field trips and experiences section. I made notes for myself. But then as I'm deciding when I'm going to take that field trip, I'm writing it in here, because this weekly plan will be your blueprint for the daily plan. And again, yes, I know it is all in the curriculum. And if you choose to just use the curriculum, you totally can. You'll have a great experience. But it will be more rich if you take the time to plan and add in some of these pieces for yourself. So, you know, when we're talking, say, about the earth structures, what structures are near you? Do you live near some great mountains? Do you live near some amazing springs or sinkholes, or, you know, different things that you want to make sure your child sees? So, you know, I actually, for this one specifically, I got a geology book. It was a geology book of geological sites of the United States. And I went through and found all the ones that were within driving distance that we could get to easily. And I wrote those then down. Those became our weekly field trips, our weekly places to go. So that's how you really use this weekly breakdown. I'm going to pop back to class 7 for a minute. Because in class 7, you know, we actually lay the curriculum out by week instead of by day. And that is really because the child is in a much different place. They're starting to get there after class 6. They're starting to get to the whole, like, gosh, Mom, do you have to be the cruise director all the time? And so in class 7, we were really looking for them to spread their wings just a little bit. And so in class 7, I'm planning a little bit differently. I'm planning in a space that I only am requiring one writing piece a week and one drawing piece a week for my child. And that doesn't mean she's not doing, main lesson work in between and with lots of reading in between, but it does mean that I am sort of allowing her to take what she's learned over the last 7 years and put it into action. So you can see I still have some things to populate here. I just populated the things I knew off the top of my head. And then the next coming weeks, I will be populating these weekly portions. So in the next video, when we get together in July, we'll be taking these weeklies and we'll be moving them to dailies. We're moving them to a daily part. And the daily part, I have just sort of laid out as a week, and I'll use however much space I need. But in the Planning for Peace journal, I'll show you what it looks like. It is looking like, looking like this. So it's got your layout, and this would hold for 2 children. So I like this because Eric and I take turns teaching. So I always write who's teaching for the day. And those daily plans, like I said, we'll start them in July. But those daily plans really, I try to have between September and December done before school starts. And then I just try to stay ahead of them and finish them up, if at all possible, during the Christmas break. So that is, I always make notes in the back. So I've already laid out, this is where I took these notes. This is just a side note. I wrote out the blocks that I'm teaching, how many weeks I know I'm going to be teaching them. So then I could decide which months I was doing which in. And really, it doesn't totally matter, with the exception of class 1. And for that one, you want to do the letters in order. But classes 3 and 4 and 5, most of 5, you really can move those blocks around as needed. So I like that because, especially with class 5, if you're planting a garden, then you can, plan that botany block around that garden planting and that kind of thing. So hopefully that is helpful. Please come to the next call, ready to work on dailies. And please take the time to really think about your child and ask their angels, ask God what it is that they need. All right. I hope you'll join me again. Have a good day.